This is the World Organic News podcast for the week ending the 7th of March 2016. John Moore reporting. This week I've picked out a couple of posts that relate to a future we all need to be aware is coming. One of the side effects of industrialisation is urbanisation. It is expected by about 2050, if not before, over 50% of humans will be living in urban settings, not rural. This will bring big challenges. Not just the removal of human waste, but the other end of the supply chain too, food. The Urban Agricultural Review posted a piece refuting an article in the Vancouver Sun. The Sun article argued urban agriculture was unsustainable. The Urban Agricultural Review produced a strong counter-argument. I would recommend you all peruse it. For those of you wanting to get your hands dirty in the service of food production in urban areas, Crop Luck has a great post on converting lawns to gardens. Let's run a thought experiment. Think about the amount of lawn you have or someone you know has. Think about the amount of fuel used to mow it. Think about the amount of water used to keep it alive and fresh. Think about the levels of pesticides some people spray on their lawns. Now multiply that by the number of lawns in your suburb, town, city, country. Imagine the savings just in CO2 by converting 10%. Imagine the savings in CO2 by converting 10% of this into food production. Imagine the food miles saved by growing food where it is consumed. Now push that 10% to 80% and see the power of gardening. I would urge everyone who can convert to convert as much of their lawn to raised bed vegetable gardens as they can. Links to the Urban Agriculture Review and Crop Luck blogs are in the show notes. And now to our continuing journey through John Seymour's The Complete Book of Self-Sufficiency. Last week we ended with Seymour's love of animal manure, in particular his love of cow poo. This week we'll look at ruminants. Ruminants are the ideal animals for converting food humans can't eat into food we can. Seymour discusses cattle, goats and sheep. Each of these has 4 stomachs and is thus a ruminant, and each eats a different sort of feed. Cows like the long-stemmed grasses and lush growth they can wrap their tongues around and tear off. Sheep like the shorter pastures left by the cattle, and goats prefer the rougher semi-woody and woody feeds. Sheep and cattle graze, goats browse. Some combination of all 3 ruminants would cover most available feed sources. All 3 though will destroy young trees, vegetable gardens and rose bushes. Cattle and sheep can be reasonably easily fenced out, but goats have a different temperament. I love goats, probably because of that temperament, and their ability to turn scrub into milk and mate. A zero grazing setup with extra strong fencing works well for collecting droppings and keeping goats out of the areas we prefer them not to enter. It does involve moving the feed to the goats and can lead to foot problems if the flooring isn't kept clean. Seymour's philosophy relies more on feeding the stock where the feed grows. He does though look to collect manures during winter. His philosophy is basically to avoid the factory farming systems he called for what they were back in the 1970s. As we would expect from Seymour, dairy products cover a large portion of his food from animals when it comes to ruminants, though he does not shy from the question of meat. He, and I for that matter, have no difficulty slaughtering animals for meat. Depending on where you live, you may have access to an abattoir, but if you don't, the book provides how-to information in slaughtering and butchery. Even if you don't want to do it yourself, it is a useful process to know. Difficult births are also discussed and described. Nothing beats learning from an experienced stock handler, but I have used the drawings as a reference during lambing seasons. In summary, ruminants are a cornerstone group of animals when it comes to self-sufficiency on at least an acre. Next week we will explore pigs, poultry, rabbits and bees. I also hope to make a big announcement next week on a sponsorship deal for the podcast, so please stay tuned for that. Any questions, feedback or criticisms are most welcome. Email me at john@worldorganicnews.com. That's John, Jon, no H. A transcript of each episode is available on the blog at worldorganicnews.com under the tab Podcasts. Sounds used in this podcast are courtesy of Texas Radio Theatre Company on the Freesound site. Links are in the show notes. Thanks for listening, and I'll be back again in a week.